So here we are in the ancient city of Caesarea, just on the coastline. Beautiful spot. Caesarea is really famous because this is the spot where Paul, the apostle, was imprisoned for 2 years. It's also the place where he wrote the epistle to Philemon, and so this is one of the best archaeological sites up and down the coastline here in Israel. And this spot that we're at, we're just a little bit away from the wind, but it's basically right next to the ocean and right next to where the chariots would have raced.
The Crusader city is defined by the rectangular jagged wall here. The sweeping arc is the Byzantine Christian wall that is beyond the hippodrome or circus. The two circles represent the residential area. This is Herod's Great Harbour. The oval amphitheatre is here, but we're not certain exactly the position. Next is the theatre and Herod's palace, right next to it. This view shows the dramatic beachside situation for King Herod's magnificent city. Note the palace promontory coming up on our left and the theatre on our right. On the left of this map, number 8 shows the dark blue water of Herod's once great harbour that utilised advanced concrete technology. It is now sunk deep beneath the waves. In 30 BC, in the contest for control of Rome, Herod had backed his friend Mark Antony, but he accepted Augustus Caesar's success, so Emperor Augustus rewarded his loyalty with this coastal strip of land where Herod built Caesarea. When Herod died, his son Archelaus ruled Judea for 9 years, but was replaced by prefects sent from Rome. We're speaking to you from the Herodian Theatre at Caesarea, right on the waterfront of the Mediterranean Sea. Herod was a great builder and a ruthless and wily king of Judea for 33 years, but the Roman emperors were his overlords. Herod had been a military man. He loved sport and designed an entertainment precinct that included this theatre that seated 4,000 people. Originally, the theatre had a tall scène fronds, or backdrop, that kept out the wind, the sea spray, and the ocean view. Further away from the water, King Herod built the circus or hippodrome for races and athletic sports, gladiatorial combats and fights between wild animals. Herod held the Actian Games there every 4 years to honour Augustus. They included horse racing, chariot racing, gladiatorial combats and hunting. An inscription that is important for Christians was found at this theatre. The inscription translates, Pontius Pilate, prefect of Judea, has dedicated a temple in honour of Emperor Tiberius. Here we are right at the ocean, it's not the ocean, the Mediterranean Sea, at the coastline at Caesarea, which was built by Herod also. Just at this point, we have to my left, we have the theatre which he built and which was used for hundreds of years afterwards, and ahead of me is the circus or amphitheatre, which was used for chariot racing at that time as well. Herod built his great harbour, which he named Sebasti, which means Augustus, and a lighthouse to guide shipping. He built a temple to Augustus and the city of Rome, that is, the goddess Roma, when the cult of emperor worship was beginning, although the Byzantines replaced it with an octagonal cathedral later. A century after Herod died, Caesarea was damaged by an earthquake, but Emperor Hadrian soon arrived from Rome and rebuilt it. Hadrian converted Herod's oval amphitheatre into this long hippodrome for sporting events and horse races. Originally, it had seating along both sides and at the curved end. It seated at least 30,000 spectators, but it was probably only wide enough for two chariots to race each other, as it had columns and an obelisk lengthwise down the centre. The Byzantine Empire grew out of the Roman Empire when Constantine I moved his capital from Rome to Byzantium in the early 4th century. Constantine ended the Great Persecution, and the Holy Land became Byzantine and Christian. The octagonal cathedral that replaced Herod's great temple to Roma and Augustus was one of two Byzantine churches. In 614, the Persians invaded the Holy Land and reached Caesarea. About 30 years later, the Arab conquerors arrived. After another 300 years, the Seljuk Turks came. The Persians, Arabs and Turks became increasingly Islamicized. Scholars used to agree that these conquests brought destruction. Certainly the economy declined when the Christian aristocracy left. The medieval city you see here was built during the 9th century by the Arabs. A variety of buildings and courtyards can be seen, and one section has now been made into a museum. The octagonal structure coming up on our left now is a bath in a bathhouse. Note the walls of the Crusader city coming up on the left. The Byzantine Christian monuments remain within this walled city. Christians were killed over 249 years of intermittent persecution, from the reigns of Nero, who killed St. Peter and St. Paul, to the greatest persecutor, Emperor Diocletian. Emperor worship and the Roman cult were entrenched. Constantine I ended persecution and made Christianity legitimate. Constantine was baptized on his deathbed, but Christianity was not mandated for another 6 decades. These stones outline a small Christian chapel or martyrium built to honour the Christian martyrs killed here during the great persecution of Diocletian. An eyewitness, the historian Bishop Eusebius, published their stories in The Martyrs of Palestine. 2 Christian churches were built in Byzantine Caesarea. Eusebius was Archbishop or Metropolitan of Caesarea. He was Constantine's friend and biographer and an admirer of St. Pamphilus, who established a school and a library here before his martyrdom in 300. This is the 2 apses of one of the churches. The arches are the remains of Byzantine-era bathhouses. Roman bathhouses indicated wealth and luxury. They were for pleasure, not for cleanliness. People spent hours socialising there and even dined there. The bathhouse in the centre of this shot is from a Byzantine-era palace. Later we'll see its excellent floor tiles. Herod built himself a luxurious palace with a Roman bathhouse, a rectangular swimming pool and a Jewish mikveh, although the only ancient synagogue in Caesarea was built later. We are now in the Byzantine-era bathhouse, which has been restored. Now we're walking towards Herod's palace promontory, built out into the sea. Its swimming pool. Look for the remains of the highly detailed mosaics in Herod's palace. The palace continued for centuries, used by kings and governors, such as Pontius Pilate, Felix and Festus, as in Acts 25. St. Paul was interrogated here. A cistern beneath Herod's palace complex was converted into a prison. St. Paul probably languished here for 2 years, while Jewish leaders and Roman officials decided his fate until he appealed to be tried by Caesar and sailed for Rome under guard. The site is being prepared for pilgrims to visit. Neither the house of the Roman centurion Cornelius, which St. Peter famously visited, nor the home of the Philip the deacon and his 4 daughters, where St. Paul stayed, has been identified. Material remains of Herod's and Hadrian's eras are mixed here with those from the Byzantines, Muslims and European crusaders of the 13th century. Herod built Caesarea out of local Kura stone covered with white stucco. The white, red and blue marble and granite seen here were imported after the Jewish wars. Columns were used and reused, and stones were recut and reused during various eras. King Herod built the harbour and the lighthouse, and also grand warehouses to facilitate trade. In 1101, during the first of 8 crusades called by the Pope, the French captured Caesarea, but Jaffa, called Joppa, was the main port for pilgrims and trade. Caesarea was taken by the Muslims. Various European crusader armies came intermittently for 200 years. The 7th Crusade of the 13th century was led by King Louis IX of France and his brothers. Louis chose to rebuild the area around Herod's port that had already been fortified. He strengthened it with a deep dry moat and built a crusader city with 3 gates. This was the restored East Gate. It had a drawbridge and slit windows for archers to fire arrows through. This walled crusader city is on the north end of the beach and was much smaller than King Herod's city. It did not include Herod's theatre, his palace, or Emperor Hadrian's racetrack, which are all in the south. Louis' crusader city lasted only briefly. It was conquered by Islamic Mamluks and destroyed in 1265. We have just walked in the deep moat now filled in. Let us now consider water. Caesarea lacked a reliable water supply, which was essential to any expanding city. King Herod loved a Roman-style hot bath and understood the importance of water. He built an elevated aqueduct to bring water 6 miles from the spring into the city, including to this Roman nymphaeum, which spouted water into the rectangular basin. People brought their vessels here to fill them. The statue of Hygeia, goddess of health, was found nearby and is on display. Although King Herod built Jewish ritual pools here and in Herodium, which Justin discusses in one of our videos, he may not have personally practiced Judaism, as his mother was Nabatean, although he tried to appear to be Jewish, but he built pagan temples for the cult emperor worship, and in northern Galilee at Caesarea Philippi. Herod's most impressive monument, the High Aqueduct, was carefully graded to keep water flowing south. Various Roman legions kept it repaired and left us 9 inscriptions to tell us so. The Emperor Hadrian came here for less than 2 years. He added a second channel adjacent to Herod's aqueduct, making the monument wider. The emperor, that you can see the 2 channels at the top at the end there. Hadrian also built a second semi-underground aqueduct that we will now enter. The lower aqueduct was more than 10 kilometres long and brought water from the Crocodile River. It was partly underground and partly a channel that Hadrian roofed over with a vaulted ceiling. The Emperor Hadrian was no friend of Jews or Judaism, and he infamously expelled all Jews from Jerusalem when he rebuilt it as a Roman city. Overall, Caesarea Maritima proved to be a difficult environment for Jews and Christians, but it was a significant site. St. Paul visited it, utilised its port, and was imprisoned here. Caesarea became a great centre for Christian scholarship when Origen and the biblical scholar St. Pamphilus established a school of theology.
Thanks for watching, and if you liked that video, please press the like button. It really does help our channel. Also, please press the subscribe button, because then you get to be kept up to date with all of the new content that comes up onto Dr. Campbell's YouTube channel. Secondly, if you would like more of this kind of content, Dr. Campbell has a bunch of these sorts of books. So looking at this book, this is Synagogue as Heritage, looking at the Tabernacle, Temple, Synagogue, and all the way leading into the church, and also Ecclesia, the long journey to tomorrow. These are books looking at church history. There's also other books, smaller books that are things like Ancient Ephesus and Early Christianity. She has a bunch of these books. Thanks for watching the video.